The rain hammered against the windows of my small apartment in Seattle, mirroring the storm raging inside me. My name is Corbin, and until a week ago I thought I had it all: a loving wife, a comfortable life, and a fulfilling career as a marine biologist. I was wrong. So terribly wrong, it started subtly. Elara, my wife of 7 years, a talented architect, began working late more often. Important deadlines, she'd say, her eyes tired but bright with a nervous energy I initially attributed to professional ambition. I'm not a jealous man by nature. I trusted Elara implicitly. We'd built our life on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect, or so I believed. One evening, I decided to surprise Elara at her office. I grabbed a takeout pizza from our favorite place and drove downtown, humming along to an old jazz tune on the radio. The security guard greeted me with a knowing smile. "She's still here, Mr. Hayes. Long night for everyone." I thanked him and rode the elevator to the 10th floor, Elara's firm. The office was mostly deserted, dimly lit by the glow of computer screens. I found Elara's desk, meticulously organized as always, but she wasn't there. I figured she was in a meeting or perhaps grabbing coffee. I waited patiently for about 15 minutes, scrolling through my phone. Then I heard it, muffled voices coming from the conference room at the end of the hall. Curiosity piqued. I walked towards the room, the voices growing clearer with each step. As I reached the door, I could distinguish Elara's voice, laced with a breathy intimacy I hadn't heard in years. Hesitantly, I pushed the door open a crack. What I saw shattered my world. Elara was locked in a passionate embrace with Kian, a younger colleague. Their lips were intertwined, hands exploring each other with a desperate hunger that left me breathless. Time seemed to stop. The pizza slipped from my numb fingers, landing on the floor with a sickening thud. They broke apart, startled by the noise. Elara's face paled, her eyes widening in horror as she saw me standing there, frozen in disbelief. Kian, looking smug and unrepentant, simply smirked. "Corbin, Elara stammered, but I cut her off. "Don't," I managed to choke out, my voice thick with pain. "Just don't." I turned and fled, the image of their embrace seared into my mind. I ran blindly through the office, past the startled security guard, and out into the cold Seattle night. The rain was coming down harder now, washing away the pizza stains but doing nothing to cleanse the filth that had invaded my heart. I drove home in a daze, the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windshield. When I arrived, I didn't go inside. I couldn't face her. Instead, I parked the car and walked aimlessly along the waterfront, the salty air doing little to ease the nausea that churned within me. Hours later, as the first rays of dawn painted the sky, I finally went home. Elara was waiting for me, her face tear-stained and haggard. "Corbin, please, let me explain," she pleaded, her voice trembling. I steeled myself, trying to maintain some semblance of composure. "Explain what, Elara? Explain how you could betray me like this. Explain how you could throw away everything we've built together for a cheap fling with some boy." She flinched at my words. "It's not like that," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "Didn't mean for it to go this far," I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. "You were kissing him, Elara. You were practically undressing him in the conference room. How much farther did you plan on taking it?" She started to cry, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. "I'm so sorry, Corbin. I know I've hurt you. I don't know why I did it. I'm just lost." I stared at her, my heart aching with a pain I had never known existed. I had loved this woman with all my being, and she had repaid me with the most profound betrayal imaginable. "Lost," I said, my voice now cold and devoid of emotion. "Well, congratulations, Elara. You've lost me." I spent the next few days in a fog, moving through the motions of life without really feeling anything. I went to work, conducted my research, ate and slept, but it was all mechanical, devoid of joy or purpose. Elara stayed in the guest room, pleading with me to forgive her, to give her another chance, but I couldn't. The trust was gone, shattered beyond repair. I contacted a lawyer and the divorce proceedings began. Elara was devastated, begging me to reconsider, promising to do anything to win me back. But my decision was final. I couldn't stay with someone who had so callously disregarded my feelings, my love, and my trust. As the divorce progressed, I started to learn more about Kian. He was a known womanizer, a smooth-talking charmer who had a reputation for sleeping his way to the top. He had been with the firm for only a few months, but he had already managed to seduce several of the female employees. I also discovered that Kian wasn't just a philanderer, he was also corrupt. He was involved in a scheme to embezzle funds from the firm, using his charm and influence to manipulate others into participating. Elara, unknowingly, had become one of his pawns. Armed with this information, I decided to take action. I contacted the authorities and provided them with the evidence I had gathered. Kian was arrested and charged with fraud and embezzlement. Elara, though not directly involved, was implicated in the scandal and lost her job. Seeing Elara's life crumble around her brought me no joy. I didn't want her to suffer, but I couldn't forgive her. She had made her choices, and she had to live with the consequences. I moved out of our apartment and found a small place near the university, closer to my research lab. I threw myself into my work, finding solace in the familiar rhythms of scientific inquiry. One day, a few months after the divorce was finalized, I received a call from a woman named Wren. She introduced herself as Kian's ex-girlfriend. She had heard about what had happened and wanted to meet with me. Intrigued, I agreed. Wren was a striking woman with fiery red hair and piercing green eyes. She was intelligent, articulate, and fiercely independent. She had been one of Kian's earlier victims, seduced by his charm, and then discarded when he had moved on to someone else. Wren and I spent hours talking, sharing our experiences and our pain. We discovered that we had a lot in common, including a deep-seated distrust of smooth-talking charmers. As we talked, I realized that Wren was more than just a fellow victim. She was also a kindred spirit. We found comfort in each other's company, a sense of understanding and empathy that I hadn't felt since before the betrayal. Over time, our friendship blossomed into something more. We started spending more time together, exploring the city, hiking in the mountains, and simply enjoying each other's company. Wren helped me to heal, to trust again, and to open my heart to the possibility of love. I learned that forgiveness is not about condoning the actions of others, but about freeing yourself from the burden of anger and resentment. I forgave Elara not for her sake, but for my own. I released the pain and the bitterness, allowing myself to move on with my life. Elara eventually moved away from Seattle, seeking a fresh start in a new city. I heard through mutual friends that she was doing well, working as a freelance architect and slowly rebuilding her life. I wished her well, genuinely. I harbored no ill will towards her. I found happiness with Wren, a love that was built on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. We married a year later in a small ceremony by the sea. The rain had stopped, and the sun was shining brightly. As I looked into Wren's eyes, I knew that I had finally found my way back to the light. The betrayal had been a dark and painful chapter in my life, but it had also led me to something beautiful and unexpected. It had taught me the importance of resilience, the power of forgiveness, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Life had given me lemons, and I had made lemonade sweeter than I could ever imagine. And that is my story.